Good afternoon, Glenn Barry with Atma Environmental, and welcome to another on-site installment. We're here today to talk about site remediation, and in this particular installment we're on a site in Donville, which was a former plant nursery. That plant nursery use over the years has resulted in site contamination issues requiring cleanup, specifically arsenic. So those surface soils have been contaminated with arsenic, and the developer wishes to develop this property into a new estate. So the issues are the arsenic contamination and minimizing the cost of cleanup for our client, the developer. How are we doing that? Well, with any remediation project, we need to look carefully at the total cost of getting cleanup. So in this case, how can we best manage the known site analytical data to get the remediation outcome that best suits the client and is the most cost-effective way to go forward. So we spent a lot of time crunching numbers, and we're here today setting out the areas that actually need to be cleaned up with a laser level and putting pegs into the ground so we know exactly how much soil is to come out, and that soil will be the minimum amount necessary to achieve the outcome that we're looking for. Preparing lands for residential use requires attention to not just the chemical contamination on the land itself. There's a number of protected beneficial uses which we need to be aware of when getting a site ready for residential use. Of course, one of these things is rubbish. Solid inert waste can be left on the site following demolition of sheds and concrete pads and other things which are no longer needed on the site and have to be removed prior to development. So one of the issues here on this site will be to make sure that any solid inert waste gets removed prior to the audit being signed off. Another issue we need to take care of on this site is asbestos. We found some remnant bonded asbestos cement sheeting left below fences in a few localized areas. We'll be removing that as part of the package of works that we're doing here for the environmental site remediation. A couple of points about effective site remediation, and the key points here is preparation. The preparation work is crucial to establishing how much soil that we have to take off, knowing exactly where it is, how deep to excavate. This is crucial because every one of these trucks rolling out of here over the next few days is going to be loaded up with contaminated soil, and each truck is going to cost our client thousands of dollars to get rid of. So we've done all that preparation work before even putting a shovel in the ground here to ensure that our client is not going to pay any more than he needs to have his site decontaminated while still reaching all the environmental objectives necessary to have this site signed off. Alright, back on site here. It's been a few days now into the project. I'm going to introduce you to Helena Willems, who's project managing the fieldworks today. Helena, give us an update where we're at.
Well, yesterday and this morning we had a couple guys on site. They're taking the soil out. We're working within a GPS grid to remove soil that's been contaminated. Over here you can see we've removed about 0.2 meters, and on this side over here about 0.5. So it depends on what depths we're going to, and we're being really careful to keep those levels just right so to minimize disposal costs for our client.
Right, it's been a few days since we were last on site with the camera. In the period there, we've been excavating all the polluted soil onto stockpile to get rid of that. Our next part of the job is to collect validation samples. Those are to determine the effectiveness of what we've done. So those samples will be analyzed to make sure that the decontamination has been complete. And behind me, Barb is collecting some of those validation samples, which will be tested and put in our final report. Part and parcel with environmental remediation jobs is an acknowledgement that there could be off-site environmental impacts. So we need to have an environmental management plan. In this case, one aspect is the creation of siltation fencing to prevent off-site impacts to the adjacent creek line. Alright, wrapping up our video now on environmental site remediation. We've got all the contaminated soil out of the site. It's on stockpile. It will be removed as a prescribed industrial waste. We have our validation samples, which will be tested, tabulated, and put into a comprehensive report for the environmental auditor to sign off on. Our developer friend, who is the client on this site, will have the go-ahead then to commence his residential subdivision. So, if you are a land developer, an investor, a builder, a government authority that has the need for an environmental consultant to perform services on a site, I invite you to call us. My name is Glenn Berry. I'm the Principal Environmental Consultant at Atma Environmental, and I'd be pleased to take your call personally.
Once the equipment arrives on site and the location to where the work is going to be performed, the equipment sets up very quickly. The setup of the equipment is similar to that of a crane, where we use mats underneath the stabilizer jacks. Once the equipment is resting on the jacks, then we uncouple the truck just as you would a regular highway trailer. Once the truck has been disconnected from the machine is now standalone, and we are ready to start setting it up, which involves leveling the equipment so that everything works properly. The machine was designed to be set up quickly. The catwalks that are needed for getting around the machine are set up very quick with no tools, no loose parts. This way nothing gets lost in the process. Stabilizer mats are installed underneath the cylinders at the back. All the catwalks are erected. This only takes about 5 minutes to prepare the machine for the actual setup. Once all the pads are in place, we start at the front end of the machine and we take it down to a basic level. Very easy to adjust by the hydraulics. The hydraulic system, of course, running off the engine and oil pumps. The final steps to leveling up the equipment is to have the rear stabilizers in position. This stabilizes the machine for any other movements that occur. Once we have the rear stabilizers in place, the discharge conveyor belt, stacker belt as you may, is deployed. And once it is out, the machine is basically ready for operation. As you can see, the discharge belt, or radial stacker if you may, can be swung from left to right approximately 160 degrees. This allows for a much larger stockpile than if it was a rigid belt. Safety railing is put up, the lid is opened on the mixer. Normally we keep the mixer lid closed for safety purposes, but for today we just wanted to open it up so that everybody can see what goes on inside the mixer. Here you see the bottom discharge door opening. This is where the material discharges onto the belt below. It now closes up and it is now ready to go. You can see the mixer now just been started and it's running at about probably about 40 RPM there. And this is kind of an average speed that we use for mixing. Soil is then dropped into the holding bin. All material passes through the grizzly bars on top, and this of course separates out any stones or large debris that might be in your contaminated soil pile. You can see that it has to pass through the grizzly bars, and you'll see a little later on how that tips up and discharges anything sitting on top. Now we'll watch as the conveyor belt starts, and if you look, you can see a blue colored roller there. That is actually a belt scale, and it's now currently taking readings on the weight of the material passing over. It will automatically shut the belt down when the predetermined or the preset amount of soil has passed over the belt. This is very consistent every time, very high accuracy. You can see the material now has mixed and is on the discharge mode, and you can see the material traveling up the rear discharge belt. You can there now see where the gate is open and material is disappearing out the bottom of the mixer. Discharge is very quick. Probably a full mixer takes about 35 seconds to clear out. Here you can see from the operator station, we have the mixer gate. We show it on the green as good to go, meaning the door is closed. Red means the gate is open, and that way the operator never has to leave his station to make sure everything is ready for the next batch. The mixer RPM is shown above on the little display panel and is very easily changed with the toggle switch. Speed up, speed down. This is the grizzly bars on the top of the bin tipping over. This allows us to discharge anything on top, such as big stones or rough material that was in the contaminated soil pile. The two hinges that you see here and up on the cylinder hinge at this point here, once the grizzly is down, you can pull those hinges and it will flip the other direction. This allows discharge of the material to the left or to the right of the machine, depending on your site location and condition. This is the place where we store the chemical. There's room in here for two 1,000 liter totes, and they're coupled together by two lines teed into the pump. Valving is set up so that you can run either the left or the right hand side, and this allows minimum shutdown time. At the end of the job, you're ready to move. You fold up the rear conveyor, and here on in you lift the stabilizer jacks at the rear. And once again, it's just the reverse of leveling it. We bring it up to the height we need. Highway tractor then is back in underneath. The equipment is quickly prepared for road travel and is ready to go in a very short time.
CH2M Hill Plateau Remediation Company has broken ground with new technology in soil remediation. Using Recovery Act funds, engineers are developing and deploying innovative tools to search out contaminated soil on the Hanford site. Last spring, an aerial survey was conducted via helicopter. It covered a 13 square mile waste site in just days, in what would have usually taken months on foot. Now CH2M Hill has a new tool to detect contamination and verify cleanup in the areas that have since been excavated. The tool, called a Kubota, is expected to save time and streamline surveying. This small utility vehicle is mounted with a large crystal sodium iodide detector. It helps identify potential zones of contamination almost in real time.
I think it's one of the better pieces of equipment that we got out here, honestly, for the work that we're doing and the remediation work that we got. Covers a lot of the bases that we need.
Typically, crews use handheld equipment to verify cleanup efforts, which often requires workers to spend months in the field. The Kubota surveyed approximately 70 acres of excavated areas in the BC control area on site.
Well, to keep up with the excavators, and that's a big part of it, we're able to generate better maps. We can actually use that data in a timely fashion. It's nice to see that taking the next step and developing our technology a little bit better.
Most importantly, the Kubota increases safety by keeping workers off the terrain.